Okay, did it. Hey
Okay.
guys, I'm Brittany,
I'm Maria.
and welcome to the Be More podcast.
Hi everyone.
Struggle
Brittany,
is real today.
yeah, Brittany's struggling. She also has a
Struggle
topic
bus.
today.
Wait, but okay, so I did two very
Mm.
21st century. I don't know what I'm trying to do with my hair right now. It's just all up everywhere. I did two 21st century adult things yesterday. I ordered my first DoorDash meal ever.
Wow. Welcome. Welcome.
And like myself that I didn't make somebody else do it for me because I didn't want to do it. And I ordered a pair of glasses online.
Oh, from what website?
Zenny, that was the one that like
Oh,
I heard the
yes.
most good things about.
A lot of my friends
So,
have Zenni glasses. They're good.
so
They're
we'll
affordable
see.
too.
They are. And like I was so worried about I'm somebody who has astigmatism, so I was super
Hmm.
worried about, it not working out, but everything
Yeah.
came up right. So we'll see what happens. They should come in a
Nice.
week. I'm super stoked because the ones that I have like all of these like fake blue light glasses, but
Hmm.
um with all my issues with my sinuses, it sucks to have to, wear glasses, and my glasses are old as hell. I'm pretty sure I still have the same pair of glasses that I've had. I think they're
Hmm.
like 4 or 5 years old at this point, so I just needed, new glasses.
Still, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's still pretty old. 4 or 5
yeah,
years. I typically change out maybe well, probably same, like 3 or 4. Something like that.
yeah, it's
So
nice when we get older and your like prescription doesn't change that much, so you can keep
yes.
older, like you can
Hmm.
keep it for a little longer. But anywho, that was my excited. I'm an officially a person in the
Congratulations.
21st century. I did two
What
major things online.
what did you order from DoorDash? That's the main question I have. Where did you order?
Mexican food
Of course,
yesterday.
that's what I figured.
Duh.
I figured. Good for you. Well, welcome to the almost 2023.
Ta-da! I did it.
Hmm.
But it's dangerous. Like I didn't want to go down the path because now I'm gonna be a problem. I'm gonna have
Oh
to
yeah.
use so much self-control.
Yeah, I like when I first started using DoorDash, I'm like, yeah, I'm too lazy, but now I'm just like, you need to calm down. Everything's so expensive. Either pick it up yourself because delivery fees and all the fees are like ridiculous when it gets
Yeah.
sometimes, or just make yourself a meal.
Yep.
So I get that. I get that.
The only time I let myself splurge is really on the weekend. So I was like, you know
Same.
what?
Yeah.
Whatevs.
If I don't feel like cooking, or like if I'm having a day, forget it. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
go on DoorDash.
Both those things were
Mm-hmm.
yesterday for sure.
Fair enough.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
okay.
welcome.
So I literally have not done any like
We can just
deeper
rant.
research on this than I have been doing as a person, as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
But we might be looking at this stuff up as we're going today. So the reason why I texted Maria that what I wanted to talk about today was sugar.
And I was like, what do you mean? What did I respond? I was like, what do you in what?
You were
Like,
like, I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Um, and okay, so here's why. So uh, I am a person who's very sensitive to sugar and caffeine, and
Mm-hmm.
I I don't I was starting to notice like my trends in like sugar cravings and how much I was like starting to rely on like I need to eat something sweet. I need to eat something sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always had a big sweet tooth?
Yeah. I think it's gotten worse though, as I age. Like I feel like every time I eat, I'm like, I need something sweet after, something savory. Like
Yeah,
one of
it's
those. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
terrible. Um,
There's a word in Tagalog. Um, I went out to dinner with my parents and Aaron
mm,
and Aaron's boyfriend, and we had ramen, and it was so like heavy in like umami fat like flavor
mm.
that like afterward we were craving something sweet, and like there's a word called like suya in like Tagalog that means like all like the I don't know what it is, but like all the if it gets too savory, like to break that down, it's just like, basic food science. Break that down to like not feel like greasy is to like eat something sweet. And so there's like a
Right, right.
specific word for that. So like every time I eat something super savory, like I have to eat something sweet or else I get that weird ass feeling in my mouth. And it just gets worse and worse
I know. Okay, I
like
know what
as
you're
I get
saying.
older. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So um
Uh,
but no, I've always had a sweet tooth though.
Me too. And
Hmm.
so so I've been like struggling with, so my father's a diabetic, right? So I'm always like very sensitive to watching. So let me rephrase that. My father is a type 1 diabetic. So my father is a genetic
Hmm.
diabetic, not like I mean his diet doesn't help, but he's
Yeah.
not he doesn't his weight and his diet and his life are not what led him to being diabetic. His body literally has issues with insulin production,
Hmm.
and managing all of that. So I've always been very sensitive to trying to watch out for things. And I've been saying to myself, like, I had a moment where I was like, look, maybe I just am eating too much sugar. Like, maybe I'll just try to pull back on the sugar because it's probably affecting all of the things in my body. So I was like, all right, I have to start looking at how much sugar is actually in stuff. And like to
Uh-huh.
the extent of where I look at it on everything, and I never used to do that, right? There are
Hmm.
things that you know are going to inherently have
Have
sugar in
sugar.
them, like
Yeah.
candies or things that tend to be sweeter. Like those are the things that you're
Fruit.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Natural
but that's like
sugar.
that doesn't matter. I'm talking about added sugars. I'm
Got
talking
it.
about the
Okay.
added
Yeah.
sugars here. Natural sugars, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started looking at labels of stuff, and there's sugar in everything,
Literally everything.
like
Like, no lie.
everything. Goldfish have sugar in them.
Yeah. It literally, honestly, probably every like junk food potential, like not every,
Right,
but
with
like
like all processed,
90% of it.
so much processed food
Yeah.
has sugar in it. Like things that are salty even have sugar in it, which is probably what makes them taste better because it's a
Yeah.
combination of salty and sweet.
Exactly.
Um,
Alcohol.
yeah, oh, anyway, I wasn't even going there because I don't partake enough to really consider it, but I know we
So,
know that that's all sugar. Go ahead.
we were just talking before this, right, about my father.
Yeah.
He doesn't drink anymore, and instead he's substituted that, and for health reasons. He has substituted that for soda because he's craving so much sugar.
Oh my God, that
So
sucks.
like I'm just like, I mean, it's better than the alcohol, I guess, but also you need you need to not, drink that much soda.
So okay, so here's my issue.
Sure.
There's so much added sugar in everything, and there are so many research studies and studies coming out now that are linking, well, sugars to so many things, like excess amounts of sugars to so many things that we are experiencing with health in our bodies, like specifically like cancers and things like that, because all of this turns into like essentially fat, right? And all the
Yeah.
high blood pressure and all the other stuff that we deal with.
Hmm.
And it just bothers me so much. So like even just like randomly searching for what like, the FDA allows, like they don't have to say that sugar's in stuff. Okay, so let me go back. What it says on the label versus
Hmm.
what it says in the actual list of ingredients, it doesn't have to be on the label if it's in the ingredients list.
Oh, I see. So if you put sugar as an ingredient, you don't have to put in the nutrition label
Correct.
how much sugar is in your product.
Yeah, because apparently it says a packaged food cannot contain, well, they're talking about what's deemed healthy, I guess, in this. But if it doesn't hit a certain amount of actually being added sugar, they don't have to say that it's like they don't have to put it on the nutrition label. Like they're trying to stop people from looking at what the actual ingredients are, hoping that they'll just look at the nutrition label and be like, "Oh, there's nothing in here, so it's fine."
Uh, the FDA it's from the FDA, or you
Like
just Google
people are
something.
allowed to do it because the FDA is not
Oh, they're not as strict as yeah.
right.
Like they're
Like
not
and like other
strictly
countries are.
yeah.
But apparently what came out right away was that apparently this is also
Hmm.
another bullshit situation that um like we talk all the time about how people are like, oh, granola bars, like they're so healthy for you. And I remember the ones that we used, remember like when like the chewy ones were like a big deal.
Oh,
I remember eating those
yeah.
all the time as a kid.
I
And it
love the
was like
chewy bars.
they were so good. And
We
they were
still
really
have them at
cheap.
work.
Do you? And they were
Yeah.
really cheap. And it's just like everybody's like, oh, granola bars are healthy, granola bars are healthy. And when you
Not
look at
those.
the sugar
Oh my god.
content, like the added sugar content of them, and I just like don't I don't understand.
Hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, so I just searched. Apparently there was the FDA and the WHO, the World Health Organization, who everybody should
Hmm.
know who they are now after COVID happened. Um, Oh, this explains a lot as to why food labels have changed so much over the past few years. Apparently, in 2020, I did not know this. The FDA required manufacturers to start adding a breakdown of added sugars and total sugars to all prepackaged food at the local supermarket. It was a new law that took effect in 2020. And
Oh,
this explains why
that's very
I'm
new.
seeing it more, right? This explains why I've been noticing more, like, why is there so much added sugar in things? And you never used to, it's not that it wasn't there before, it's just that now you actually have, like, they actually by law have to show you how much
That's
sugar they're
good.
adding to things.
That's good. Will people pay attention to the next thing? But at least it's there now, you know?
Yeah, well, that explains why. I feel like, because I was like, I feel like I would have noticed this before. And I'm
Yeah.
noticing it like over the past few months a lot more than I ever saw before in things like freaking goldfish that I was like, what the hell?
I don't know. It's just like too much. Everything is just too much all at once, you know?
And it becomes really such an it becomes such an issue. So okay, I'm going to read you exactly what I see here. So this is something that's quoted from an LA nutritionist and wellness educator.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that by the fact that I said they were from LA doesn't make anybody completely tune out right away. But um, so going back to when you had brought up, eating more fruits and vegetables, and everybody gets so worried about fruits and vegetables. There's such a difference between added sugars and natural sugars and the way your
Yeah.
body processes them. Because when you eat, like honestly, even like a potatoes have natural sugars
They have
in them,
natural sugars.
but
Yeah, yeah.
because they're higher in fiber, your body's not processing it the same way it would if you were to eat like a Twizzler or like a Jolly
Mm-hmm.
Rancher or a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Mm-hmm.
Your body's able to balance out what's going on with your sugar because you're dealing with other like natural resources. But when you eat um things that are like higher in, so it says when your body has to absorb sugar quickly, like high fructose corn syrup and soda, it
Which
leads to
everything
spikes
has
in.
high fructose corn syrup,
I know.
people.
This is the most simple way to, that's like your basic added sugar, right? That's the basic way to,
Yeah.
and they use it as like they use it to bind foods together when you're doing with like granola bars and stuff. It's an easy,
Mm-hmm.
like, um, but it just, I don't know, it just makes me, and then wait, let's add on this part. So this nutritionist also said added sugars contribute to little or no nutrients. So you're eating just because it tastes good, right? Which is not the
Yeah.
purpose of eating.
Mm-hmm.
And it can lead to added weight gain or obesity, which can ultimately have effect on your heart health.
Yep.
Although sugars naturally occur in foods, although they naturally occur in foods and they may be superior to added sugars when they're natural, but the point is to make sure that you are balancing out how much sugar you're having in general. I just feel like I don't think that people, I don't know, I've gotten to this point in my life where it bothers me and I'm trying to be more cognizant of it. But like I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of getting I don't want to say afraid, but like sugar scares the crap out of me
What it's gonna do with your body,
because I feel like
or just so much everywhere.
that
There's so
both,
much everywhere. Yeah.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
and no, I
This
like they're
just
trying
reminded
to,
me. This is
yeah,
so off topic. This just reminded me that I don't have any fruit in my in my house right now, and I'm going grocery shopping after this. So don't mind me writing my grocery list right now.
yeah, go for it. I literally was just there today, which is why this is also top of mind for me. But I just don't.
Well, this is this aids to the obesity issue that we're having in this country
Correct.
because
Yeah, 100%.
and this can go back. So I was driving down the highway one night and there was a massive ShopRite, which is an East Coast chain for people, supermarket chain for people that are not from the East Coast. And in my head, I'm like, why is a supermarket so big? Like, have you thought about how big supermarkets are?
Every friggin' time I go to one. Yes. This is what I told you about being able to just randomly go and walk through a market. I wish we had that.
Yeah, but like these supermarkets, right? Like, and 90% of the shit that's in there has high fructose corn syrup
Well,
somewhere
because
on
so
your
much of it
eating
is like so much
people.
of what we eat is
It's
processed. And that's another
processed.
thing that I've been struggling with too, because
Also, organic shit is so expensive for no reason. Well, not no reason, but like
I,
it's not
um,
aiding to this, or
it's
it's
so
not helping.
hard to have to, when you, like, we've grown up with
Hmm.
big box supermarkets. Like,
Oh
we've
yeah, for
grown
sure.
up with things that are, I mean, the amount of food that we have access to that's processed, we eat more manufactured food than we eat naturally like occurring food. And
Sourced, yeah.
it's kind of mind blowing when you think about it. And it's such a struggle because I went on this. I haven't been been feeling well, and I was
Mhm.
telling myself also I got blood work and my vitamin D levels were abysmal. So that was the
Oh,
first thing I
oh,
had to do, which was not helpful.
that's a
So
that's a
everybody,
female.
this is
That's
the
like most.
time of year that this is super important. Please make sure you're having your vitamin
Get your
D and
vitamin
you're
D
working with your
in.
magnesium and your zinc and your
It
calcium to
helps your
support it.
as someone who's
It's
seasonal and
holy crap.
with someone who's seasonal and also I have vitamin D supplements. Like
I
I should
could
be
not
taking them more often than I just look at
I
them, you know?
just I the it was so funny because I sat in the doctor. I went for my physical. It's funny, Maria was just telling me how her dad went for his physical. I went for my physical and I was having issues. I had a whole episode with a migraine this week that was like terrifying.
Oh, that sucks.
And I'm like sitting there and she's asking me all these questions and I feel like perfectly fine in the moment. And she's asking me about the supplements that I take. And anybody who knows me knows I take like 30 supplements in a day, probably.
Uh-huh.
Um, and if you looked at my family's health history, you would understand what I'm working against.
Yeah.
So that's why I take them. And it was just super funny because I was so diligent about taking vitamin D. And I'm going through and I was like, I don't remember everything that I take. And I was like reading some stuff off and she was reading stuff off to me. And she goes, are you still taking vitamin D? And I go, ah, shit. Like,
I forgot.
no, like I definitely like stopped in the over the summer and then forgot to go back on it. And then she was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, well, we'll look at your vitamin D levels. And they were like, if this is the panel, like
Yeah.
it ranges from like here to here. And
Yeah.
I was like this far off, like low. So I had to go get vitamin D today. Little caveat, have your vitamin D friends, especially if you're female.
Yeah, it hits us harder and more
But
often than not.
it's so
You also just reminded me, sorry,
yeah, yeah.
my
This is
brain, I have to go pick up my prescription. So I literally put Walgreens on
good.
my to-do list today.
But it's so it really is baffling when we walk, and
Hmm.
that's why it's if you think about if we didn't have all these big box processed foods, our markets would be like dink, like these tiny little things.
I get that, right? Like I get that, especially with America being America. Like I get that we need the franchises of big supermarkets and like the
Well, we have access to, it's funny, my cousin was just we were having a conversation. Oh, we were having a conversation about mussels.
okay.
Because we're both Italian, we were ordering Italian food. And she
Hmm.
goes, wait, is now the time of year that you don't order mussels? And I looked at her and I was like, I was like, I don't know. I was like,
Yeah, we don't.
is that even a thing
Yeah,
anymore? Like, is
in
there a
season.
time
Yeah.
of year when you can't have things anymore? I was like, that's so embarrassing. Like, I feel like such an asshole. Like,
When we were
how,
growing up, I feel like it was more of a thing than now because like my parents when I was growing up, like being Filipino, we also eat a lot of like shellfish and seafood and whatever, would be like you can't have this because there's some like I don't know if it's a disease or something that you're gonna get sick from because the seafood isn't in season, and now I just barely hear about anything
I mean, because
anymore.
we've controlled
We've overfished.
well, we've done that, but anything when it comes to food, we control so much of the
Hmm.
whole experience that oh, and I can say that in America, right? Like we are one of the countries that and it always makes me laugh when when we go to restaurants and it's like farm to table, like seasonal options. It's
Yeah,
we don't do that on a normal basis. And
no, and it's more expensive if you go to those places.
it totally is, which is ironic, right? Because if you go to another country and it's a seasonal thing, it's like this is just what we eat because it's what we have available to us.
Exactly. But I love eating the Philippines, like in my dad's part of the Philippines because it's more rural, and like yes, there are supermarkets. Like yeah, do go to supermarkets, but also there's a local fish market
Mm.
where people haggle prices, like that type of market, and you know that they grew that shit, and like I get the
Yeah.
most nutritious meals when I go to the Philippines, my dad's side of the family, because I know it's not added preservatives and like all this bullshit stuff.
I just don't I just really I don't understand. I think it's if you really zoom out on the whole situation with food
Capitalism.
around I mean I understand, but I like if you zoom out on the whole issue with hunger, just like let's not even zoom out into the world. Just look at America, right? Like we have people who go hungry, but we have the most food.
Oh,
It's
it
like that whole
baffles
it's
the
that whole
shit out of
theory
me.
of like
It's so
we
annoying.
have more cars than like humans in the
Yeah,
US. Like
yeah.
it the whole concept, it's all mass production. It's all
Yeah.
overproduction. It's like we're doing so much that we're doing nothing at once. And I,
And what
I,
is the harm? What is the harm? We both worked at Dunkin', yes. What is the
yes.
harm of putting those donuts into a food bank every
I
night?
don't, that one still really just kind
It
of,
really
that
just bugs me.
story just
Yeah,
baffles me.
yeah. Even though we're like, you're supposed, like, at one point they were supposed to, and it just got too expensive to like ship them to food banks or something, and like,
I just
food
don't,
waste.
I just really don't understand the way that like food, like the whole umbrella of food functions in our country. And
It's all for profit.
but this is the thing that pisses me off, right? Is that my mom was bringing up to me how she had a conversation with a friend, and like there's all this like sickness and cancer
Hmm.
that's been coming up in their family, and who's got this and who's got that. And I have another like my
Hmm.
best friend, her mother and I were having a conversation about all the people that she knows who just recently got diagnosed with cancer. And like anybody who doesn't know, cancer is very prevalent in my family. My father was fighting it,
Hmm.
and I just sit and I think about all the shit we eat.
Yeah,
And
and everything that we consume just in general.
and
Yeah.
right, like not even just our bodies. And it's just
Hmm.
I guess this kind of comes back to, I don't know what we were just talking about recently, where it's like, why is no one, well, we were just talking about this with voting, like, why is no one doing anything about it? And it does come back to capitalism, but does it have, why, I
It's
just
the
don't
lobbying.
understand how, like, there's so many, okay, I'm just going to do a random, like, I'm going to Google Scholar. I just want to
Sure.
see
Oh, not sponsored, but go to Google Scholar if
Google
you want to
Scholar,
actually.
the quickest way to, like, actually just real quick get not that I would cite them for, like,
I wonder, how those people are like, I do my research. You think they go on Google or Google Scholar?
who.
The people that are like, I've done my research on like political or like scientific shit, like the
I don't know.
anti-vaxxers. They definitely
I
don't go on
don't know.
Scholar.
I don't even think a lot of people don't even. I don't even think some of my students know that Google Scholar exists.
No.
Um, I this is sad, but I literally just searched like sugar and death,
Oh God.
and a lot of this stuff is not relevant. I maybe I'll put sugar and health. I just don't like. We know my equivalent to this is that I am driving a car and I come to a crossroads. And if I turn left, there's a wall. And if I turn right, there's a road. And I just continue to turn left into the wall. Like that's how this all feels. Like there are, okay, so I searched sugar and health. There are
Hmm.
numerous articles in here
Yeah,
about
I'm doing the same.
how, sugar affects our weight control, which directly affects our health. Like I just don't.
Have you reached a crisis in the epidemic of obesity and diabetes, dietary sugar, and body weight? That's one of the
Oh,
article
I see that
titles.
one. I
You
see
see
that
that
one.
one? Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing of um sugar substitutes and how the sugar substitutes are like worse than the
Why?
sugar because you're
Why is there a sugar? I've never understood why all of a sudden Splenda, stevia, I don't know what the other ones are, equal or whatever. Like, why did we need these? Like, sugar is bad enough,
I honestly really don't know what the history of this is. It's something that
right?
I'm very
Like,
curious of. It's just funny because I think it has to do with the way that they're compounded, so the way that we break them down versus like
I'm super
them spiking
backward
our
right now.
sugar right away
Yeah.
versus like us being able to take time to break them down. Um, but in so many ways they end up being worse for you because they have all these other
Yeah.
chemicals in them, so they don't
It's the
affect you the way
chemicals.
natural sugars would, but all the other crap in them does other bad stuff to your body. So it's like,
Hmm.
six for one, half a dozen for the other kind of
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't,
Well,
I'm dealing with a personal crisis in this right now because I want to be able to do better and I want to be able to eat better. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to
I
buy
think
all
we
these
all
fruits
do.
and vegetables. I think
Yeah.
every human has to deal with it. But then it's
Yeah.
like the
The
reality of our
accessibility.
lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
accessibility and the convenient it's just so
And it's funny that I say
annoying.
accessibility when we have 50 million shop rights in every corner. Like it's accessible, but like it's
And
the
we do it to ourselves, right? We get caught
yeah.
in the place between, I mean,
Hmm.
honestly, we get caught in the place between like capitalism and capitalism, right? Like capitalism in the workplace and then like capitalism as a consumer. Like you get caught in the crossroads between that.
Yeah, because if you're working, the last thing you're gonna want to do is make a healthy meal as opposed to
So,
door dashing, you know?
but I mean, at the end of the day, and DoorDash isn't the problem, right? When
No.
you
It's
can
actually very
DoorDash,
accessible.
like the food that we got last night was amazing, and
Yeah,
it's the difference between so much of it isn't even the difference. It's having like having something of a whole foods, right? Like eating
yeah.
something that's processed for eating something that comes from natural ingredients, and you can get something that comes from natural ingredients from a restaurant, right?
Oh,
That's
for
not
sure. Yeah.
that doesn't always have to, I mean, depending on what restaurant you're getting things from, right? Like we ordered from like an actual restaurant versus ordering from like a McDonald's, right? The totally
Yeah.
different situation.
Yeah.
But what's the I guess this could lead me to another segment of this. What in America we stand for our rights to freedom.
Yeah.
But how much freedom do we actually have
Oh God.
around this idea of, like how we're feeding ourselves and how we're taking care of ourselves when
When the market controls everything.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like we're like the little like rat. Oh boy, words. Lab rats, right? Like we get sent out into
Yeah. The
the
world.
maze, right? We get released into the box, but the box is a huge maze, and it's like you can only really go one way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because they're leading you. You think you have a choice, but they're leading you to your choice.
So the bigger question of all of this is freedom really is the freedom
Is
we
freedom
have
really there?
is freedom really free? I think this all comes back to like the tattoo that I have on my back because I remember when we were in college, I remember like touching on some of these theories and I remember being like, wait a second, everything's a facade.
I
Uh
think it's I I think we have personal freedoms. Like we are free to like talk again about our country and do whatever. But then when it comes to like the big picture stuff, like the accessibility of food, the choices of food that you have around you, the accessibility of walking like to places versus having a car, like that becomes like the government telling you and the lobbyists being like, okay, like lower, and you see this, you just, I mean, a lot of people see this and don't want to like say it out loud, but like the lower economic status neighborhoods have more fast food places than actual sit down restaurants and grocery stores.
yeah.
And that's just like
Well, because you're
food
looking at
segregation.
higher amounts of working class people who have less convenience and ability to be able to, right? Like you're looking at all of that is structured intentionally.
But that's also a segregation status type situation. Like why
It
not give them more restaurants and sit down places that have actual food as opposed to like 10 Popeyes?
correct. It every once in a while when things around we just watched the a movie last night, the Death on the Nile movie. Did you hear
Oh, is
about
it
that
good?
movie?
Was it good?
I haven't decided.
Oh, okay. It's right in the
Like
middle.
it wasn't bad, but it wasn't
It
good.
wasn't award winning. Yeah.
It was like kind of predictable and then kind of not enough and then kind of too much. Like I don't know.
There's a lot of like it's star
There
packed, isn't
are
it? Yeah.
it is packed with stars. It just I don't know. I haven't figured out. You have to
Okay.
watch it. I would I watch it again probably,
Mm-hmm.
but it just some parts there wasn't enough and then some parts there was too much and it was like I
Mm.
don't know what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Um and it became a little bit like overly predictable, but it was still the actors were all great. It was just like the story parts of it were
Got it.
I digress. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't remember what my point was.
I don't know. um, I don't know.
Okay. So
Food.
we were watching it, and it's based in like the 1930s, and there's things that come up around race, and it. I have these moments, and we talk about them a lot on here, where I go, "Crap, that really wasn't that long ago." Fuck, like you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it's,
Yeah.
but okay. So I just found this. Oh, we're jumping all over the goddamn place
Yeah.
today. But going back to sugar, so apparently earlier this year, um, in Europe, the European Commission has the issue with sugar is happening all over the world. It's not just in America. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
the way that countries are choosing to respond to it are very different.
Yeah.
And so the European Food Safety Authority, this is like mind-boggling compared to the way we talk about it in America. So this was back in April of this year.
Mhm.
Talked about and like was announcing to people that even a few grams of sugar a day can pose risks to human health. They recommend that it's not possible to define a safe intake level for sugar, neither for added sugar in sodas nor for sugar in naturally occurring foods such as juices. The risk of numerous health problems such as type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease increases with higher sugar consumption. The intake of sugar should therefore be kept as low as possible, according to the
Mhm.
European Food and Safety Authority is EFSA, which is so interesting because in America, we get told that as long as you keep it under 10% for an adult,
Yeah,
you
but that's
should
a
be fine, which is really funny because I don't think it's hysterical because when you look at a food label, food labels will be like 22% of your daily value, which is like,
yeah.
wait, that doesn't make
Right,
any
I'm not
sense
supposed to eat this then.
because I'm not supposed to go over 10. And that's like a granola bar. This gets even more interesting because they talk about how they've started presenting like really clear rules about what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Mhm.
They they call them nutrient profiles
Okay.
with what their food. I'm laughing at this, but it's really sad. The EFSA recommends their recommendations could not be clearer. Sugar makes you sick, even in small amounts.
It does. Too much of anything makes you sick.
Wait, ready? This gets better. For the health claims regulations, this means that any health advertising for sugary foods must be banned throughout Europe. For food labeling, manufacturers must be prohibited from hiding sugar. The proposal announced by the Commission for the end of this year for science-based European-wide mandatory nutrition labeling in traffic light colors, I don't know what that means, must take
Oh.
full account of the EFSA recommendation. And then it gets even better because it said something about how they're not allowed to, I don't know where that went. It said something about how they're not allowed to advertise sugary things toward at kids at all. So like think about
This
cereal
is
brands in
Europe.
this country. Yeah.
This is
Think about
Europe, yeah? Yeah.
cereal brands in America.
Mhm.
Like they're not allowed to
There's no
do that.
Kellogg's ain't doing no like, marketing thing in Europe. Like there's no like,
Right.
yeah, Frosted Flakes commercials that we saw when we were younger. Well,
I just
also I
Go ahead.
think Michelle Obama when the Obamas were in office
Mhm.
had she changed the school lunch system to have more
Yeah.
healthy options, right? Like that's a thing that
Mhm.
happened, right? So
Yeah, I
at
remember
least
that.
that's a step in the right direction. It's not like,
But I
super
mean, but
high sugar, super high whatever.
think about all of the fundraisers.
Oh well, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. It baffles me that our country responds to it so differently, right? Like Europe is like if you have any sugar, it's a problem for your health.
Whereas here it's like
And if you
Halloween.
think, right, if you think about
Yeah.
it's very interesting. So for anybody who has pets, my cats are like repulsed by the smell of sugar.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Like
interesting.
they like the smell of savory things,
Okay.
but like if Dan is eating like obviously like anything with chicken, anything like that, like one of
Yeah.
our cats goes nuts. But
Yeah.
if you put something like sweet smelling around them, they like ugh.
Really.
Yeah.
It's not natural.
But like
I
because
mean, then
it
again, other savory things aren't natural, but like yeah, yeah.
right, you know what I mean? Like they don't because they're I mean they're if I think about it, like they run 100% on instinct, right? They're instinctively their
Oh
bodies
yeah.
don't their bodies know there's no nutrients in this for me.
Well, also we have an addiction to it. Like this is
Yeah.
the way that our market is, the way that we're presented food is with added sugars that you just become addicted to the craving of sugar, which is why it's so which is why people the same thing with caffeine, right? Like with coffee, like when you wean off of it, you are so irritable. Like you hate life.
Well, this comes back to again with my situation with my migraines. And like one of the paths that I've been led down, and something that I need to like really look more into, is one of for I don't know if it 100% is something for me that works yet. I have to try to use it as treatment for my migraines more in the future. But a lot of people use caffeine, like Excedrin apparently has caffeine in it to help with migraines. So there's a whole I mean, you literally are just like, I don't know how that even works, but
It works
it's
though. A lot of people I know, the caffeine helps with brain. I don't know what the word is. Not productivity, but just like brain, I don't know, maintenance.
This is gross. So apparently in 2007 and 2008, there was a study done. I don't know where this is. There was a study done that they were giving rats, they were giving rats water with cocaine in it. And
oh my God. Jesus Christ.
And they started switching the water with cocaine out for sugar water.
Yeah.
And the rats became more highly addictive to the sugar water than they did to the cocaine water.
I mean, yeah, sugar is like the worst. It's because it's so easily, I feel like it's so easy to be addicted to it because it's everywhere.
I just like
just
I'm
reading.
reading about this. I'm reading about this study on like
on cocaine versus sugar water.
So apparently the issue isn't even so much the fact that we're eating it. It's just that the issue seems to be more of the fact that binging sugar is what leads to more addictive. So the whole point of this is, right, the fact that we have such high amounts of sugar in everything that we eat perpetuates our addiction to it. If we were to have like smaller amounts of like, oh, I'm going to have this sugar now, and then we didn't really have a lot of access to sugar, our body would be able to regulate and our brain would be able to regulate it better.
But so just the thought that we have sugar accessible to, like, I have a bowl of candy, you know, like because it's so accessible, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take a candy.
Why? Like, why? And then okay, let's go down this path too. If we're talking about caffeine and all of this.
Yeah.
Parents are so worried. I'm going to sound like an asshole right now, but just deal with me. There are parents who are so worried about their kids having access to drugs and being around marijuana and being around, whatever other thing that we say is bad in this country. But you're going to let your 13-year-old drink a venti, sugary macchiato
Frappuccino
from
with
whatever
extra
they're drinking,
caramel,
the Italian bullshit from Starbucks that they're drinking every day.
And not deem that as an addiction.
And not see that as a problem.
Because it's so downplayed how caffeine alters your body, and sugar, obviously, but like, let's just take the caffeine route. Like, again, those kids are addicted to caffeine. And it started out as a social matter, right? Like, I'm doing this because I'm socializing with my friends.
How is it possible? Okay, so here's just like,
did your parents say like no coffee until you're older when you're growing up?
No, I didn't want anything to do with it. I thought it smelled and tasted awful. Remember, we were in Dunkin' and I'd be like, ugh. Like,
I mean, same, yeah.
Hated it.
Well, my parents were always like, don't drink, like, you're not
I remember hearing, well, my mother never drank coffee, right? My mother never drank.
My mom drinks
my
every
mom
day.
was a tea person. So like it was, I learned to drink tea, right?
My
and
parents
I didn't drink a lot
of
it.
Yeah.
But like I think it's different. I don't think, and my dad only drank it like socially, so I don't think it was ever like a whole, like a thing to be, I never had access to it to drink it.
Like, caffeine was always around. I just never thought of it as an addiction until I got older. But like, my mom always has coffee, and then at night she has tea. Not every night, but like every so often. My dad will drink socially, like like coffee or whatever, but we'll have tea like more often than not.
Yeah.
So like they reign on caffeine without me knowing that it's an addiction.
Yeah. And I don't think my mother it was never a conversation about the caffeine, because like tea, naturally has less, so especially depending on the type of tea you're drinking. And she never drank black tea. So tea definitely has a lot less caffeine in it than coffee does. And she hadn't told me how she was very sensitive to it. And unfortunately, I'm very similar to my mother in a lot of genetic ways. And I remember having, and I still have days where I'm extremely sensitive to it. But I don't remember it
Mhm.
ever being a conversation. And I remember I remember hearing the rumors when we were younger that like, oh, caffeine stunts your growth and
Stunt your growth. Yeah.
caffeine affects your like your brain
Your
development. And
brain
we were always
development.
just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I see it now. I just had a conversation with a student of mine the other day. Oh, where he was very energetic. Like
Oh,
he
just
was
wired.
Wait, he was
Yeah.
very energetic and he's normally a very calm person. So I was talking to him and I was like, "Did you happen to have like coffee this morning?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"No, I don't drink coffee. It stunts my growth." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he was like, "Yeah, he started telling me all these things about his like, you know, stuff that he
Yeah.
has." And he was like, "Yeah, so I stay away from coffee. I worry about what it would do to my body." And he's a junior in high school.
Mhm.
And like 2 weeks prior, I had just been with like our freshman class and they started selling they're doing like a cafe on Fridays in the morning in our school where the kids can go and buy coffee.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
two of my kids have never had coffee before.
Oh God.
And
Do they
they're
buy
in
coffee?
school buying coffee and just like so explain
Yeah.
to me why we're not allowed to give candy out to our kids on Halloween anymore, but you can give them caffeine every Friday and make them pay for it.
It's the making them pay for it.
Well, no, I
It's
mean like it's a fundraiser. But do you see
but
the
even
point? Like
so,
it doesn't make
because
any
the
sense and it's
conversation around
so
caffeine
asinine.
isn't. I mean, the conversation around caffeine and sugar. I mean, caffeine isn't as
It's just ridiculous.
bad as sugar, I guess. Like, because it is caffeine's an addiction.
I just
Every sanest like adult knows this. Like,
but
we are
and
addicted
this
to
but this
caffeine.
is the problem. This is the bull crap. Like you're so like we're like and I say you, but like our our systems and the way that we function around food, we're such fucking hypocrites. It's so embarrassing. And our structures of things and the things that we say are good and the things that we say are bad. And it's like, nah, no, like it's not good and bad. Like it's all not good. Like it's all not good.
How do
It's
you feel
just
about like those fad diets, like keto, let's
don't
say?
fucking get me started. That's how I feel
That's a whole
about them.
different that's a whole different story on a different episode. But yeah, not everything is not bad. Like, so like let's just take the keto example, like cut out all carbs. I'm like, I'm Filipino, I'm not cutting out fucking rice. Like, there's no way. Like, but it's like the cutting off of things, just cold turkey, is gonna fuck you up
So
more than weaning it off.
here's here's my 2 cents on this whole thing. Unless you are somebody who is gluten intolerant, and there are people who have
Hmm.
become gluten intolerant because talk about
Yeah.
excess of things unnecessarily. I get it. I mean, honestly, regardless of whether you're gluten intolerant or not, your body's first line of energy, your body's first way that it produces energy, because remember, friends, we don't eat because we enjoy the eating process. We eat because you need to fuel your body. Carbs are our first sign of
Yeah.
energy.
Hmm.
So if you're not eating carbs consistently, your body is not going to think, hey, let me start to break down fat because it's harder for your body to break down fat. Your body will start to break down its muscle and its
Your
protein
muscle
and
goes
all of its
first.
soft tissue. So using keto as a fad diet for weight loss is the stupidest shit I've heard of ever. If it works for you, that's great. But just because you look good on the outside doesn't mean your body feels good on the inside. This whole thing around fad diets, I can feel my blood pressure going up right now. All of it is so individual and
Hmm.
so based on person to person.
Go to a nutritionist or dietitian.
I just cannot. But I will tell you the basic nutrition of your body is that unless you have some type of, differentiation in your body and you have to do it something like you have special
Hmm.
dietary restrictions or needs, you need carbs for fuel, for clear brain function, for
Yeah.
clear like body, like optimal body functioning of all of your organs. You need carbs as your main source of energy. Otherwise, your body is going to start to break down all the soft tissue.
Period.
That is my that is my 2 cents on that.
I only brought that up because, like, again, it's like these fad diets that are like, cut this out. And you can't, like, same thing with sugar. You can't just cut it out, right? Or like caffeine, you just can't cut. You have to wean yourself off of it. So like in small doses, as opposed to like, you know, I don't know, example, like you eat ice cream every night, right? Maybe every other night, and then maybe
Love
like
ice cream.
once a week. And yeah, but like you know what I'm saying, like you know, like things like that will help your body to like wean off that like somewhat sugar addiction, and then it's just like
But it takes
it
it's
takes a
kind
lot of
of
willpower though.
it's almost kind of gross how our bodies are so smart, and they
Hmm.
nothing that we do in the short term is going to affect the way that we function, because your body is going to make the necessary adaptations to literally prolong your life, right? To keep you alive. So if you're somebody who eats a lot of sugar, just for example, because we were talking about sugar, if you're somebody who eats a lot of sugar, your body starts to figure out, how do I adapt,
Hmm.
like literally on from the inside out, to help me function with what I'm being given, right? How do I
Yeah.
like that's process of survival? How do I function best with what I'm given? So your body learns to do that. And if you were to stay in that place for a prolonged period of time, that's when you'll start to see degeneration. And that's when you'll start to see like the long-term effects of, not having a healthy diet. But if you try to adjust that on your body really quickly, like if you're the kind of person who has like a diet soda every single day, or not even a diet soda, like your diet includes you having soda every
Hmm.
single day, or your diet
Hmm.
includes you eating a high amount of sugar every day, your body is like, all right, this is how we function on this. And you're like, okay, now I'm going to cut out like all of the sugar and I'm only going to eat vegetables. Your body is going to be like, what the fuck? Like
Hmm.
you're going to throw yourself off so much. And it's to the point where you make yourself sick. And it's not because vegetables are bad for you, right? It's not because like, well, I ate vegetables and it made me really sick. That's not how it works. It's just that you haven't
You haven't taught your body.
your system isn't like prepared for that. That's not what you function off of. And I'm struggling with it right now because as I said, I was going through the whole thing of like looking at all the processed food that I'm eating and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and freaking out about everything that's inside of it. And I was like, all right, I need to start eating like more whole foods and more like
Yeah.
natural foods. And not only is it really hard to do because my lifestyle, I haven't built that into my lifestyle for it to be supportive. I just like I my digestive symptoms, like, why are you eating 2 times more fiber than you normally eat? Like, what is
Yeah.
going on right
Yeah.
now?
What's happening here?
It
It's just, that's why
it's
it's so
not
hard to like change. Well,
it
no,
is.
I mean, it is, yes, but also it's like people get so discouraged when they feel like shit that like first week or so. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like the pushing through of that
Yeah. And
that like
it's a
will give you the
process.
results. Yeah,
It is a
it's like
process.
it's a habit that you have to develop within your body. You have to teach your body that this is the way that it's gonna go now.
It's I don't know. It's so hard to do. It's so hard to do anything with
Period.
with like period. It's so hard to do anything. But it's we we are not creatures who mentally support process. Like our brains
It's
do
just
not
instant
care
gratification.
about process. And when we have to work through process, it sucks. Like to have to be there, to have to be in there and have to stay in there and just hope for the best and just keep doing what you're doing. And it would be so it would be so much easier if we had the construct of our systems around food and around the resources that we had access to that actually cared about us and wanted to keep us safe versus caring more about their like bottom line.
Yeah. Well,
It would be different. And I don't know, I just think the the reality of knowing all of that they don't
hmm
they're not doing everything they could be doing and they don't actually care is so sad.
but it's also like if they don't care, why should I care? It's like the top down, like management
Oh
style
no,
type
I don't feel that way
situation.
at all. You feel that way?
That's in like the general population. They don't care, so why should I care about my own? Like,
But like it's your goddamn body.
yeah, but I'm just
Like they
saying
don't
general
care, so I have
population.
to. I know, I get it. But
Yeah.
I don't know if it's so much a direct they don't care, so why should I care? I think it's more of like well, they don't care and they know everything and I don't have any resources to find out anything else, so I guess I shouldn't care either if they're not worried. You know what I mean? I think it's more like a blissfully ignorant. I would hope that if
Yeah.
someone presented this in front of your face, people, like, and I'm not saying, I'm not preaching to the choir here, but like people who would never in a million years listen to this podcast. But I hope that if someone was to put something right in front of your face,
They're gonna be like, okay, what is the solution? And no one's gonna have one. And they're like, well, okay, then I'm just gonna
yeah,
go
it's
back
easier
to
path of least resistance for me to just
yeah.
stick on that. I mean, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about my father right now. Let's be real.
There's just the general population.
This
Like,
is
let's be real. Yeah.
we're talking about,
He's unfortunately, yeah.
you know, I mean, the reality of the situation is that like my dad is a part of this populace that we're referring to right now because it's just easier, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just easier.
easier. And
It's just easier.
if
That's
you
all.
come down to this and it's just easier and you're dealing with struggling with something, it's a sign that you need to get some type of mental emotional support. Just I'm
Well,
just gonna
yeah.
throw that out there. But like nothing until we live, and I hope it never, knock on wood, it never happens in a day that like we see in our existence, but no one has that's where the freedom comes, right? Unless someone's forcing you, you still have a choice. Every day you have a choice. And we shouldn't be giving up those freedoms by just blindly and aimlessly wandering through and being a yes man to everything that gets put in front of us. That's the type of freedom that still
Freedom to
gives me
think
hope.
and like give you like
Yeah.
to
And
like,
like
you know,
that you get to
choose your
live
own.
your life. Like you get
Yeah.
to be as dangerous as that is, right? Like the
Yeah.
epidemics in this country of like like a lot of the health crises we're seeing with like people just having like really fucking poor habits and taking care of themselves, especially after COVID, because everybody's just like, oh, you know, let's just be disgusting and not wash our hands and not remember how to be a person and, you know, just
Seriously.
rise of all of the germs.
Yeah.
But as in the freedoms can go either way, but you have to take responsibility of that freedom. And I have hope as an individual that more people, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast, right? Like, are you fucking awake yet? I hope that more and more people will wake up to the fact that like freedom, I mean, I'm gonna fucking quote Spider-Man right now, but like I'm gonna paraphrase Spider-Man, with great power, like freedom, comes great fucking responsibility. And
Many people aren't ready for that. They just want to be told what to do and not do. You know?
yeah, I totally do. I totally do. And I
Like,
have those days where it's like, I don't want to have to make another fucking single decision. I'm
right.
done.
So someone else tell me what to do. So like, you know, going to a doctor, right? And your doctor's like, don't eat XYZ. You either follow it or you don't. Like you have the instructions, right? Now it's like the responsibility of like, okay, like I know what the right answer is, so I want to do it. And that's where the general population is like, I'm just gonna go deal with it like the way I've always done with it and dealt with it.
I just want somebody to I want someone to take some fucking responsibility and I just want to call somebody out and have them be accountable for the fact that we have access to more food that kills us than we do that actually is there to give us the nutrients we need to flourish.
The lobbyists, you can blame them, the corporations that are lobbying for this stuff.
And just
I like want to do like I need to do research on lobbying like so badly. Like how this
I think that if I ever talk about like really disheartening and popping the bubble, I think that it's one of those things that we know is going on, but I think that if we ever really truly saw what was going on,
yeah, it's a whole different
I
story.
don't
Whole
know
different ball
what,
game.
yeah, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, like would you anti-lobby a lobbyist? Like, you know, like what do you do? What even
Oh
does
no,
lobbying
I feel like like all of my hope and
Oh,
all
you're
of my,
hoping, yeah,
I'd
your
be like, all
despair.
right, that's it, I'm out. Like
Yeah. Just move one to the like Scandinavian countries that are like
yeah,
top 10 happiest countries in the
yeah, and
world.
just be like, we're good. Let's just do this. Like it's just with all of the hope and all of the potential and all of the freedom, we choose We like as a nation, we just choose to make the next wrong decision and then have to backpedal and fight so much to go and undo the shit that we've done. And I don't, we had someone come to school for Veterans Day. Happy belated Veterans Day.
Yes.
And thank you to all of our veterans out there. And he talked about what freedom really is and why he fights for freedom. And he said it in such a beautiful way to the, like, in regards to like what's right and what's wrong. Like, you have the right to say your opinion, and that person has the right to say their opinion. And if you guys want to scream in each other's face about both of your opinions, like, you both have the right to do that. But the second we say you don't have the right to do that, we move the line. Right. And then it opens the door up for other people to be like, well, then if you don't have the right to do this, then you don't have the right to do that. And you don't have the right to do that. And you don't have the right to do that, regardless of what side of the line that, like, what direction you're moving the line. And I was standing there listening to this and going, oh, fuck. Because if you're truly fighting for freedom, no one can be wrong and no one can be right.
Yeah, it's just neutral.
But how do you... This is why we have
the hands of the government.
This is why we have the issues we have amongst politics, because no one's right and no one's wrong.
Whoever's the head of, whoever has the upper hand in the government. Well,
this is why we're screwed as we head into the next couple of years, because if we become a completely Republican government, then we're all fucked. But
the Democrats secured the Senate after this past election day, so
what do you do with that, right? It's humans
playing God. It's humans playing God.
Based on what he said was beautiful and so profound, and I'm sure it went over the head of every single student that was in the room. But I was sitting there like, oh, well, based on that, and I get that argument. I totally get that argument. Freedom is not really free. No,
agreed.
It's an illusion.
It's and it's also based on
if you don't have everybody. True. If everybody that is working within that freedom, everything that exists under the umbrella of that freedom is not all on the same page, then it doesn't actually exist.
What are we fighting for?
Right.
Yes, correct. I agree with you. So then how do we get on the same page? Is that the issue? Is that the issue?
So going back to our last episode, we need some like real like political science people involved in this conversation. How do you... in our last episode, we talked about how the future of our country is about like us really redefining what democracy is. How do you do that and give it a definition and instruct the future structure of the way our government functions, the way our country functions, if the way that everyone chooses to have an opinion and stand up for that opinion, if it's all neutral?
Or if it's all different, right? Because like technically it's like we the people is always like the 3 words that people throw around. And like if the people's divided like we are right now, right? Like what is the people trying to tell us, right? So it's like it's whoever is screaming the loudest is what that means. Whoever's voting the most, whoever is like, that becomes then our freedom.
But it's not.
Yeah, I guess
it's still not, right? Because then the line gets moved.
Right. But that's how it is right now.
So it's all just bullshit. That's
whoever is literally screaming the loudest and voting the hardest.
That's not supporting freedom. That's supporting a side.
Yeah.
So freedom's not true.
Not in this context. We have individual freedoms. It's the collective that you're like struggling with, right? Like, because collectively, right, whoever votes the hardest and screams the loudest will get those lobbyists. And
those are the people, but whoever stands up and does all of that, there's still an argument. There's an argument to say there though that those voices and that version of the people are the people that oversee the power that makes up the structure that impedes on the individual life.
Correct, which is what happened with Trump.
Yes.
For the people that were freaking out when he first got into office, we're not wrong, us included. probably.
Do you remember? I think we talked about it on one episode where we talked about like the rings of the circles. I don't remember the like the circles of like the levels of like you're in the center versus your community versus you're that versus you're that
I
versus
vaguely
you're that.
remember this. Yeah.
But like your freedom really, it's not that freedom is an illusion. It's just that your freedom only exists within that circle,
Within
right?
your
The individual, right?
Yeah.
And then once you get into all of these other larger circles,
like your community and like the world at large and whatnot. Yeah.
it doesn't exist anymore.
No. And this is where we butt heads as people, as we the people, is that we are all fighting for our own individual freedoms to be heard. When we can't figure out a unified freedom, which is why sugar is the way that it is.
Touche. My brain is just going off on the like, what is the best option for existence if
it's not an individual. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not an individualistic community. It's like the more collective thought process. Because we're very individualistic as
you want to know what
Western
I'm
society.
thinking of right now? I'm thinking of the episode of the Fairly Odd Parents where everyone just becomes a gray blob.
Oh yes, like a just a
and they're all
just
the
another
same
number.
And they all exist the
Yeah.
same. The more that we have these conversations, the more that I get into these thoughts, the more that I think that honestly, the key to freedom is just getting a lobotomy and not knowing what's going on. Like I really like if I got lobotomized and I had no idea what was going on and I just did everything that I was told to do, life would just make sense. It's
literally just ignorance is bliss, right? Like if you're not
reading,
it's the education of the world.
I'm reading a book called The Seeker's Guide to Spiritual Living because I have existential crises multiple days a week and I'm very curious about like the history of where like Western and Eastern culture of spirituality like mixes and how things came to America and all of that. And part that I'm reading right now very much dives into like the existential crisis of being human and how all of us, whether we're aware of it or not, struggle with the major questions of like, why are we here and what are we meant to do and the purpose of that and how even like every human goes through it. It's just that some of us can see it for what it is and struggle with it. And some of us see it but don't know what it is and then struggle with it. And some of us struggle with it but don't even fucking know that it's there.
Yeah.
And how it leads to all of the plethora of like addictions and eating disorders and all those fun things.
Yeah.
And I haven't obviously read enough of it to know like what do we do with this now, but it's such a fascinating thing because even all of the stuff that we've talked about in this episode, all of that boils down to us as humans having to deal with what the fuck are we doing? Like that, you know what I mean? Like that question.
And each culture is different on what the fuck we do with it.
Yeah, and like the questions that we have about what happens after and what happens before and what happens in the smallness of like the smallness of the in between when we are actually here. Just eat less sugar. Like that's my brain is going in like 6,000 directions right now. Just eat less sugar, please. Like don't read. I want you to struggle just as much as I do, and I want you to know what's going on, and I want you to struggle with it. Because I mean that's the only way for you to get you want to know how you got where you got. Yeah, just like don't just look at the nutrition labels. Actually read the ingredients. Please pay attention to what's going on. Take some vitamin D and call it a day.
Yeah.
This episode was everywhere.
Fucking everywhere. I don't even know how to end that.
I don't know. My brain, I don't have a migraine, but I feel like someone's poking at my brain right now.
You're getting a lobotomy.
Maybe I am.
Yes.
No, because we're really in the Matrix and they're poking at the back of my neck right now, trying to wake me up.
We're not getting into the Matrix theory.
No, we're not
simulation theory.
I don't need another migraine this week. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Great. Well, I hope that this episode is so much true to like what we're talking about with the Are You Awake Yet? It's not fun to be awake. It's so much easier to close your eyes. But if you really want to take control of the little freedom that you do have as an individual, the more you see, the more aware you are, the better choices you can make for yourself that you do actually get to make.
I just dropped my pen. So there's that. There's my commentary on that.
Oh my God. Well, I'm done.
I'm done
I can
too.
feel like my pre-headache starting, so
I'm gonna go do a therapeutic grocery shopping trip for myself after this.
Have fun. I need to go sit in the dark.
I'm gonna try and not get anything with high fructose corn syrup, so that's
Dude,
gonna be
literally start taking pictures and we'll share it on our social. Like things that you never in a million years would think that have sugar in them, pick them up and look.
Yeah, I'm trying to get like, it's real. My list is, this is one last thing, is literally just like vegetables and stuff, but also has canned goods that I need for my my Filipino recipe. So we'll see if any of my canned tomato sauce has high fructose corn syrup. So I'll report back.
Yes. All right, guys, send us all your pictures of all the foods that you never in a million years would think would have added sugar in them, because now you actually can see them on the labels, and let us know what your thoughts are on all of this. And then we will talk to you next week.
Okay, bye.
Oh.